As we continue in our second lesson, configuring Active Directory in more complex environments, we're in sublesson 2.2 where we're going to talk about upgrading the forest functional level, and then you may have the need to demote a domain controller back to a good old regular server. We're going to look at the steps necessary to do that as well. If we're running previous versions of Windows Server on any of our domain controllers, we won't be able to use the current functional levels, whether it be the domain or the forest level. So what we may need to do at some point is upgrade the operating systems to Windows Server 2016, and then we're going to be able to take advantage of these newer functional levels. And to do so, we need to perform these steps here, which can be done through the Active Directory Domains and Trust or through the Active Directory Administrative Center. And these are the steps that you would take to upgrade that functional level. Let's pop back out to our image and explore these steps. And here we are in our Windows Server 2016-2 image. We have our Server Manager, which was opened by default for us as we logged in. We're going to go to the Tools option, and you're going to see in here we have the Active Directory Domains and Trust as one avenue for going in and working with our functional levels. You'll see here if I click on the Active Directory Domains and Trust at the top, that's our forest. I can make some changes to the forest, change Active Directory Domain Controller, Operations Master, and why we're here is to raise the forest functional level here. We're already at Windows Server 2016, so there's nothing we can do here, but if not, we would have an option of a drop-down that would allow us to choose from Windows Server 2008 up to Windows Server 2016. If we want to raise the domain functional level, we right-click on the domain that we want to work with. We raise the domain functional level here. Again, we're already at the Windows Server 2016 level, so there's nothing we can do here. But I wanted to show you the steps on how to reach this through the Active Directory Domains and Trust. By the way, if you're upgrading from Windows 2008 or Windows 2008 R2, you also need to drop to the command prompt and run AD-prep/forest prep if you're raising your forest level, or AD-prep/domain prep if you're raising your domain functional level. So just a little heads up on those two commands in addition to the GUI functional level changes that we just seen. We can also go to the Active Directory Administrative Center, and inside of here you're going to choose your local server, and you'll see over here on the right hand side under local, we can raise the forest functional level and we can raise the domain functional level. If I click on them, we're going to see we're already at the highest possible functional level, so there's nothing for us to do. So these are the two different GUI tools that you can use for raising the functional levels. And don't forget, if you're coming in from one of the earlier versions of the operating system, you may also have to run the AD-prep command as well. Now, what if? What if you promoted a server to a domain controller and you realize, yeah, I don't really need that as a domain controller? Well, we can reverse our decision and we can demote to a server from a domain controller using these steps here. You're going to go back into Server Manager. You're going to click Add Roles and Features, ironically, but in there, and I pointed this out, we have an option to start the Remove Roles and Features wizard. Then we're simply going to go in and we're going to uncheck the ADDS, the opposite what we did when we were installing it. We're going to ensure the Remove Management Tools is selected, and then we're going to click Remove Features. And then we're going to click the link to demote this domain controller, and then we'll supply the credentials to complete the demotion, and then finally click the demote option. If you want to do this in PowerShell, you can do that. You're going to use the uninstall-ADDS domain controller, and then you'll have to use the uninstall-Windows feature and specify the AD domain services as a parameter. Let's jump out and take a look at the steps necessary to demote a domain controller. And here we are back in our Windows Server 2016-2 server, where we had just completed a successful installation from a server to a domain controller. And now we're going to look at the steps to reverse that. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Add Roles and Features, and this provides information about steps you should be aware of before completing this task. We're going to go ahead and click the Start the Remove Roles and Features wizard, and on this page here we're going to have some items to take into consideration before you remove a role or feature. We're going to go ahead and click Next again. We have just a single server here. Fortunately, we renamed it, so it makes a little bit more sense to us. We'll again click Next. In here we have the items that we have installed, ADDS and DNS server. We have to deselect this. This is also going to ask if I want to remove the management tools as well as the features, which we're going to go ahead and click yes on that. So I went out and validated that we can remove this server role, and it's just telling us the DC needs to be demoted before the ADDS role can be removed. So this is where we're going to click on that item called Demote this domain controller. And you'll see up here it's using the credentials I used to log in. And we have the option of forcing the removal of this domain controller. And that's if you have some issues with that domain controller. And there's a checkbox to see if this is the last domain controller in the domain. We know that's not the case, so we're going to go ahead and leave these two as they are. We'll go ahead and click Next. The domain controller uses the DNS and the global catalog server. Do I want to continue on with this removal? I have to actually click this checkbox in order to get the next item available to me. So we'll go ahead and click Next on this. This is going to ask if we want to remove the DNS zone. We'll go ahead and say yes to that. We'll go ahead and do Next again. And now it's asking for a new administrator password because we are removing this from the domain. Review our selections. Again, I have an option for viewing a script, and this is where I can initiate the demote. However, we just went through all those steps necessary to promote it, so I'm going to hold off on actually performing the demotion because as we go through the course, I want to be able to jump between the two domain controllers as we're testing different scenarios. So I'm not actually going to click the demote here. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and click Cancel. But those are the items that you would complete in order to demote a domain controller back to a server. Now at this point, I have demoted it from a domain controller back down to a server, but the bits as a domain controller are still installed. So if I want to uninstall the bits as well, because I know this will never be a domain controller again, I'll run through that remove role wizard again. I'll again deselect the Active Directory directory services, and then I'll complete that wizard so it actually uninstalls the bits, which at that point removes the domain controller bits as well.